Hello, Hidden Gems. We have a very special episode for you today. Something we've actually not done a lot before. I want to introduce you to Dave, my new friend, Dave Neal. And Dave is someone that I reached out to and said, Dave, you've got to come on our podcast because many of you know, especially if you follow me on Instagram or behind the scenes, I have been sharing sort of my interest, I guess you should say, in the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, what do you call it, Dave? A fiasco, a saga,
Yeah,
a
warring
unfortunate event?
lawsuits. Yeah, the hundreds of millions of dollar lawsuits that they're firing at each other.
Okay, there you go. And I have listened, and I said this to you, Dave, right before we started, but I'll say it again. I listened to every creator on the lawsuits between these two Hollywood stars, or three, plus publicists, plus the New York Times, plus whoever else has been dragged into it. And I have been tuning into you, Dave, every day for quite a while now. And I feel like you have been a very nuanced, very balanced voice in this whole thing. I've appreciated talking to you, and I keep telling our audience here, I think I'm going to delve into this. And I thought, let's do it with Dave. And so I reached out to you and I was like, would you want to come on a true crime podcast? I know you do some crime. This is crime. This is crime. It's not, I told you that we actually usually cover more of the tragic, the murders, the death, the destruction. But this is certainly crime related, and it's certainly psychological.
You could look at it this way. Blake tried to murder Justin Baldoni's career. So that's your true crime element. No, it's good to be here. Thanks so much for the support. I mean, I don't know anything about lawsuits or anything like that other than this last case I covered where I was threatened with a bunch of lawsuits, which is what happens when you do a good deed, you get sued. And so I know a thing or two about the court system now.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, welcome. Yeah, sometimes you learn it in the most interesting ways. So let me tell our audience this too, because many people have been asking. Dr. John is going down the Blake Lively rabbit hole. Justin Baldoni rabbit hole. My husband, the psychologist, he was going to jump on with Dave, but he is taking his research seriously. So he is not quite ready. So it's going to be you and I talking, and I want to just jump in and share with people where I am. I want to talk about, this case has everything, and you have been bringing daily updates. Tell people where we can find you too, by the way. I want our audience to start listening to you to get updated on this.
Yeah, I'm doing things a little differently in the podcasting YouTube world where I'm doing short podcasts twice a day. So that's why I call it the morning rush and then the afternoon. So I'm giving everyone as most up-to-date information as I can. And they're just 25-minute episodes. I like to see myself as that guy that'll sit with you on the bus to work, keep you informed. Water cooler stories, everything from pop culture to some fun nature stories. And then I save the political stories for the end for those that don't want them. So, just try to give everybody a little bit of everything you should need to know, what's going on with Taylor Swift and all the big stories. And of course, maybe the unraveling of democracy, a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. So you keep us updated on pop culture. And as you said, a little bit of everything. And like I said, we cover trials, murder trials, and psychology. So we definitely I hope this is the first of many collaborations, because I think we can definitely benefit from one another. So thank you, Dave, for being here.
I love the talk. Like I'm no expert in psychology, but I love the element of why people did what they did. I think what I've learned is you get fans sort of riled up when you discuss, like, if you do believe Blake Lively was the person who made some things up, well, why did she do that? Most people operate with their best intentions. Not everybody. There are psycho and sociopaths out there, but like, why do people do what they do? And I like to, even if I'm not giving them a pass, I like to give them a little grace to go, what was happening here? And, with Blake Lively in this case, she was like, months after having a baby, and then she's supposed to be in these intimate scenes in a movie, and you could just tell that there was probably a ton of anxiety going on. And then what was the sort of catalyst that led to this becoming one of the biggest sort of PR disasters in Hollywood history, really?
You just nailed it. Exactly. And what Hidden True Crime does is we cover those hidden motives. That's exactly what we do.
Right.
We say the Dateline covers sex, power, money, but what are the hidden motives? What is really driving someone behind what they do psychologically? So yeah, and I think you are curious. You are a curious mind, and I can tell that you're thinking about that all the time. And you do put yourself in other people's shoes. And so I'm just going to lay it out on the table, Dave, because this is what everyone wants to know. What side is Hidden True Crime on, or what side am I on? And first off, I want to say I am going to go wherever the evidence leads. So when I say what side am I on, I'm on the side of evidence, and I am on the side of where the evidence is at this given moment, and change my mind. It has been changed several times. In fact, I have been following this case since before the New York Times article. I was fed an algorithm of videos about Blake Lively, who I never really cared that much about, in my stream. And I even wondered why. I texted a group text and said, does anybody else algorithm like feeding them Blake Lively stuff? Because I don't care and I don't know why. And someone said, well, I think it's because her new movie is about to come out. And then what did I start doing? Finally started consuming the stuff in my feeds because I thought someone really wants me to see this. And I did. I guess you could see, I saw what seemed like a little bit of an internet smear campaign against Blake Lively, how she was marketing this movie. And I care very much about domestic violence victims. And so it was upsetting to me to see how she was handling it versus the director who was coming out and saying, this is about domestic violence survivors. And I thought, wow, I like this guy. Fast forward, the New York Times article comes out and I quickly read it. Subscriber of the New York Times, love the New York Times. And I thought I'd been had. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This is terrible. And you know what? Actually, I could see this. This guy is touting that he's this, feminist and helps women and he's new agey. I even thought, okay, wow. I don't really even like Blake Lively that much after all of those videos I saw of her. She's not my favorite person, but oh my goodness, it makes sense now. The algorithm was feeding me a smear campaign brought on by publicists, and I was all team Blake Lively.
Yeah, we feel gaslighted possibly. You question your reality. You go, did I feel this way because of the algorithm? And you start to question, we all know the algorithms can be pushed in different directions. And that New York Times article did a damn good job of framing it, with the evidence they showed that he really colluded to make her life a living hell, which again, he would have no motivation to do that. He's got everything at stake for this movie. But I think it's a good example of audiences having their critical thinking skills because they did receive new information and change their opinion. And then of course they would shift later on.
You're exactly right. Right. And I think that's another reason I've been drawn to sort of this saga or these lawsuits, because it is making me question my own critical thinking skills and how I'm receiving information, how I'm giving information back into the world too. As someone that has been following this, I haven't covered it until this very moment, until I got Dave Neal's attention and coerced you to come on my podcast, because there is a part of me that thought, I just need to lean back for a little bit to process how I'm taking this in, how I'm going to deliver this information. And so I have read all of the lawsuits. I want everyone to know I have gone back and forth. So then after I read the Justin Baldoni's lawsuit, I became Team Justin. I will admit that, but I was still confused because I thought, well, I know these smear campaigns happen. I need to be very careful here. So I watched a lot of pro Blake Lively podcasts, which I am very appreciative are out there to make me think and to make me question my own biases and to get my confirmation bias in check. I'm going to be honest where I stand right now, today, on this date, officially, on March 25th, 2025, I guess you could say I'm Team Baldoni. I think that there has been a smear campaign against him to ruin his career. And I do think that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds had things to gain. So that is where I am. The interesting thing about the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively case is that there were often witnesses. This happened on the set of a movie set, and the things that she claims in her in her lawsuit can be seen on film, or they can be, or there are other witnesses involved. Even at the one time where there was a moment at Blake Lively's house when Justin Baldoni was invited over there were other witnesses. So we can sort of be able to assess with like receipts and, you know, collaborations of other witnesses what was really going on. And that's, I think, what makes this case really interesting too, is we can be like, okay, let's see, let's find out what are other people saying. But I want to know also your take, like, what was it about this that interested you so much that you've kept going and going?
Well, I've been covering pop culture for a while, but when I don't always dabble in like the pure gossip. There was so much gossiping happening about this before the lawsuits where, you know, you're reading it. Well, all of the cast members unfollow Justin Baldoni. That alone to me goes, he's guilty, because why would that happen? So, you know, you just kind of clock that, and then you realize afterwards and dive deeper into, oh man, I mean, if someone told me that their boss was a creep and this and that, I would believe my friend. I wouldn't go to the boss to question him. So I kind of believe everybody thought they were on the right side because Blake probably told them in confidence, hey, this is what's going on. Of course, Blake and Ryan, it's no conspiracy to know that they are on the top of the food chain at one of the biggest, now the biggest agency in the world, WME Group. They were just bought for like $25 billion by private equity. And Ari Emanuel himself is a billionaire, their agent. So Justin's dropped. And they kind of go, well, this guy's a creep. We're not going to comment on it. And then when the New York Times article comes out, they make a couple comments. Colleen defends, the writer of the book defends Blake Lively. And then Brandon Sklenar makes a comment. And then once Justin's side is once he responds, to me, I think that's when the cast and crew go, oh, or mainly the cast, they go, oh, shoot. Are we the one who are gaslighted? And at that point, they've been radio silence, which I think tells a big story, including Taylor Swift, radio silence.
Well, not only has Taylor Swift been radio silent, she's going out with Selena Gomez. Yeah. To me, I think those are the little nuggets she leaves, because Selena's never liked Blake Lively and they've never been like a trio, but like Selena is like Taylor's go-to girl. Like it's that old friend you always have, you might not see him for like 6 years, but then when like crap hits the fan, you're like, I got to call that dude, that's like, I think Selena and Taylor, like they go way back. And the fact that like things happen, the dragon text came out and the next thing we know is Selena and Taylor are getting cocktails. I'm like, oh,
yeah, you know what's interesting is there's a lot of anti-Taylor Swift, a lot of the pro Justin Baldoni crowd don't like Taylor Swift as well. I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. Look, she's the biggest, right? She's the biggest pop star in the universe. She can sell out anywhere, any stadium she wants to. Just spin the globe, she's going to sell out. She's incredible. There's literal terrorist attacks being planned at her venues because she's just so big. And sadly, she has to deal with craziness. Like she had to deal with a terror attack at a Taylor Swift themed party she had nothing to do with, but she's incredibly large. For her whole entire adult life, including her teen life, she's had to deal with people using her name for their own benefit. She's had to deal with the Scooter Brauns and all these other scenarios where people are out to get her and really siphon the joy out of her for other people's benefit. So for her to have a friend like Blake Lively, in my head, and think that you've got a friend that you trust, and then you find out that your friend is leveraging your power, your goodwill, and your good deeds, your championing of Blake, as a way to like sort of, have some power and equity in negotiating. I'm sure that really hurt her. I'm sure, you got to imagine if you're a pop star of that caliber, you probably got 8 people in your life. You got Travis Kelce, you got your parents, you have on one hand, people you trust, and 20% of those people are now, or even more, if you want to include Ryan Reynolds, people that you invited into your tight-knit circle are leveraging you for their own good. I got to imagine
for
that
their own benefit. I agree.
Very tough.
I agree. And I am team Taylor Swift too. I don't think she had anything to do with this. I think she was invited over to that house. And I think she was rightfully upset when she learned that her name was being used in the so-called dragon text. In other words, saying that like, I've got a dragon and it's Taylor Swift.
if this goes to trial, Taylor Swift will be deposed. I think the deadline is August 14th. So the trial would be March of 2026. So they have all the discovery, and that would be end of the summer. That's why I think it settles before then, because I don't see a scenario where someone like her is going to want to be put through that. But I also know Taylor Swift is not going to lie in any way whatsoever for Blake Lively. She's going to have to tell the truth and just let the chips fall as they may. And if Blake is being honest with herself, and if she did bend the truth and share half truths, we're going to find all that out. And it's going to be, it'll be the biggest deposition we've ever seen.
It will be. And, this is exactly what Taylor Swift tries to avoid too. So trust me, I do not think she was a part of this in any way.
No, but I believe Taylor Swift was gassing up Blake Lively. I believe Blake was like, oh, they don't know anything. Like, there's been cast members that, or crew members that have, unnamed, come out and said, look, the set was kind of a disaster. Like, Justin didn't really know what he was doing. And that's okay. Look, it's his movie. You signed on to it. I've been on student films where I'm like, oh my God, you're using the wrong lens. You got to put the light over there. I've been in those situations. At some point, you got to grit your teeth and just let them do their thing. And so maybe he wasn't, but he has directed several shorts before, and maybe even a feature. So the guy's not like, right out of NYU, but Blake Lively's been on a lot of films, and she probably felt like it to put myself in her kind of her perspective. She probably felt like he was going to botch this thing. They had different creative thoughts. And in the end, she was able to get her edit, not his, even though his edit scored higher with, neutral audiences when they did screen testing. So, I'm sure Blake Lively's talking to Taylor Swift, and Taylor's saying, look, you're worth more than an actor. Actors, they always want to get into producing and directing because they're just somebody who has to stand on a line and memorize these words. And sometimes it's gratifying and sometimes it's not. And I'm sure she felt as though she wasn't being listened to and heard. And my only response to that is, well, go the Reese Witherspoon route and go get yourself, the contracts where you control film projects. Yes. It's just not yours. So go be the change and go somewhere else and go option out your own projects. Now, she had like a handful of projects in the works that all fell through where that was the case. But what she said in interviews, Blake Lively did, was, I don't like to write. I don't like to create. I just like to kind of make it my own at the end. And it's like, yeah, look, when you're in a scene, you'll do 5 takes the director's way, and then they'll say, here's one for the actor. And they give you a take. That way you feel like you got to do it your way. Maybe they'll use it. They probably won't. But it's their way of saying, all right, it's like letting your kid pick out one item at the store. It gets them off your back.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, it's a fragile ego. But I get it. Look, we've all been there. The director's like, say it this way. That's what the line is. You got to say it. And you're like, well, I really don't want to be doing that. These aren't people that want to be told what to do. And we saw in one of the clips where she's trying to tell Justin Baldoni, hey, the light's over there. You should be standing over there. And Justin's like, it's supposed to be backlit. Like, I got it. Thank you.
I remember that. That was a moment where that was the scene there. She accused Justin Baldoni of sexual harassment. It's an uncomfortable scene to watch because she does admittedly look uncomfortable, but he kind of seems uncomfortable too. Like, she is trying to direct whatever your takeaway of that scene is. She is trying to direct and says the lighting is bad. This is bad. Shoot this, shoot that. And you can tell, it's definitely uncomfortable, but you can tell, I think he's trying to get her to,
yeah, it's so silly, right? It's a flashback scene. They have, they want the lighting behind him. They want this. They have a very stylized idea. It's the easiest scene in the world to shoot. And she's like, oh, we're not doing it right. He's like, good day. There's literally nothing creative that this scene needs. Just pan up, get your shoes in the shot, and do the scene. And I guess the question, to ask a psychologist would be, what kind of trigger do you feel when you're told no, especially if you're someone who's already wildly insecure? And again, a lot of people don't like to hear this, but if you've had a baby, if you've got postpartum anxiety, if you've got whatever issues you might have, is being told no and creatively being told no, is that something enough that could set someone off? Maybe she did feel super creepy and latch on to, oh my gosh, he tried to kiss me. What? And then Ryan Reynolds, he did what? Maybe you do latch on to a quarter truth and pull it in your direction because you felt jaded. And maybe that's not a conscious thing you're doing, even though their collateral damage is you don't ruin a guy's career because of that.
Right. Right. We do not know what Blake Lively was feeling in that scene at all. She did look uncomfortable. I know, Dr. John, we need Dr. John. No, he has not seen that scene yet. I'm like I'm forcing my husband to like read the lawsuits. I have an order of everything. He's got all the material from me. First lawsuits, the New York Times. He's got to read the Hollywood Reporter. I have all of this material. Then we're going to sit down and watch that scene being one of them. So
by the way,
that's why, again, we're waiting for him to be up to date before we go full in, but we'll have to have you back when he's ready.
Well, it's fascinating, right? Because you have the ink blot test where you're looking at it, and I to be quite honest, I respect that you thought she was. I didn't think that at all. I saw a scene where his character's going in for the kiss, and she's starting to pull away, and they're doing that tension before the next scene where they rip their clothes off. Like that's how I saw it, and it's like, you know, with these intimacy coordinators, none of that is written in the script, but the director, in their discretion, knows the tone that they're going for. What would improve this in the future is having an intimacy coordinator there every day, so that when you plan out every scene right before you shoot it, there's always the rehearsals, you blocking a rehearsal for the cameras, then you actually run it, and then you tape it. And all of that is you got to have I mean, for $300-400 a day, they could have solved this whole thing if they just got everything signed off of. But this wasn't a scene that was supposed to be super intimate. So it wasn't a scene where they thought they needed it. But, you know, here we are.
Right. No, and he was trying to get her to stop talking. You could tell she was trying to control it. So while I admit that she looked uncomfortable, I also see that she was trying to control the scene, and he was trying to just handle things. Thus, everyone seemed uncomfortable. And, you know, and then she said he should have gotten a nose job. But I have questions too. The other crazy thing about this, I shouldn't say crazy, truly fascinating, interesting thing to me is how different creators in the media and people are covering this case. And it could be, I keep calling it a case. We cover cases, you know, the lawsuits,
Sure.
the soon to be trial, the saga, whatever you want to call this. I think one reason I've been holding back too is because, I'll be honest, while I do see Justin Baldoni being a victim in this case strongly, I'm going to admit it. It's going to take a lot of evidence for me at this point, by the way, to get me back, but I'll go back if the evidence presents itself. I'll go Team Blake Lively if the evidence presents itself. But I am very much believing that Justin Baldoni is a victim in this situation. But, and I want to ask you about this. I do have a hard time with a lot of the misogyny that I see involved in a lot of the creators, because there is sort of this attempt to like take down the Me Too movement, or say that all women are lying, or make this political in that, see, the feminist movement is botched, or mainstream media got it wrong. And I'm like, I don't want to participate in some rhetoric that's happening online, but I do want to participate in the psychological elements of this, and in critical thinking, and in following the evidence, and in seeing some really fascinating motives, which is what Hidden True Crime covers, which is why we're going to cover this. I want everyone to know we are covering this because it fits into what we do here at Hidden True Crime. And we do believe that we are going to add value to this conversation. So I want to ask you, Dave, as someone that's been covering this, and you have been collaborating with so many creators, and you have been sharing your opinions and trying to stay, you know, nuanced. How are you feeling or navigating a very it's a very intense topic right now?
It's a really good question. This sort of like parallel world of not just the content creators, but the people consuming. I see a bigger issue with the anonymous consumers, because there'll always be somebody, not 99% of the people fair. My audience is, by the way, just so justice oriented, and they're really good people, but there'll always be someone who goes, see, somebody lied. And whenever we get into generalities, like, it was always believe women, right? It was never believe all women. But a lot of people that wanted to politicize it said, oh, believe all women. What about this? And those types of people are the type that always have to find the excuse that negates the general rule. I believe generally that in most cases, people don't lie. And in most cases, the most dangerous person a woman knows is her partner or her father. I mean, those are, or a close relative. Like that's statistically how it works. And we have to address that. So with this case, I always say you believe people, and then you just look at the evidence. And I think if we could just all like envision us being at an art gallery. Stand 20 feet away from the Mona Lisa. You're at the Louvre. Just absorb the information and don't get too critical. Don't go in people's DMs. Don't fight with people online. Just observe it like you're driving through the Yellowstone National Park, and don't touch the bison, because everyone's allowed to change their opinion. And this is the biggest problem I have, like politically, is people get stuck in their opinions. They don't want to be flip-floppers, but like you, I just follow the evidence. Blake could present some ring cam footage that they forgot they had. They finally logged into their iCloud account, and next thing you know, they got Justin slapping her on the ass, and we go, all right, let's take a few moments to rethink things. But as of right now, as information has come in, people just aren't there. But we have seen it play out because people have en masse changed their opinion on who they believe. So I reject those that say, oh, this hurts the cause. I think by really focusing on getting it right, this helps the cause, because it raises the batting average of like, okay, it went kind of back and forth, but we figured it out and we didn't smear people and make it terrible. I hate it when we call people names. I hate the Snake Lively names and I hate it when we called on any side. I just think it's stupid because it really just dehumanizes the conversation. So it's going to happen. I was having a conversation with someone who I align with on a lot of political issues, but they thought, well, the right is covering this in a way that's dismantling things. And all I can say is I'm being as authentic and like down the middle as I can be. And I can't be thrown into other people's camps just because I'm also a content creator. You would never, if Brian Williams is accused of fabricating a story on NBC, you don't then swear off watching CBS. Like, what are we talking about? Everyone's got their own batting average and their own Rotten Tomato score as we try to get it right. As fair as I try to cover Johnny and Amber, I still got put on lists and I still got smeared and name called for certain things. And it's going to happen. But I think when you play up to the level of intelligence of your audience, I say this too with stand-up comedy, you play up, you give the smartest take you can give, and you think in the highest level, the audience will respect that and they'll rise to that level. If I want to be like Perez Hilton, late 1990s or whatever, when they were all just like making fun of Britney Spears, that's the game everybody played, and we all reveled in that. We were all a part of it. And I think if we kind of try to be above that now, the audience will follow.
Well said. You have brought up that this is one of the biggest sort of PR disasters in Hollywood. I concur. I agree with that. But why do you feel this is so important to talk about? Because you are talking about this a lot. You're talking about this every day. I'm tuning in, so clearly I'm there for it. But why do you think it's so important that we discuss this? Because I've had some people I've tried to like reel in, like my husband, now he's in. He is actually in. And you helped, by the way. You helped. We listened to you on a recent road trip, and I've been talking to him for months. But he first chalked it up to this is Hollywood drama. And I'm like, no. Like, no. But like, why do you, and it is, but it isn't. But why do you feel like this is like so worth your time to discuss?
Well, it's, if you've ever watched like a sporting match, where the guy gets called safe, but he was really out and it ruins the perfect game. The next day, everyone's going to be talking about that. Oh, what did Shakira wear at the halftime show? I loved it. I hated it. It's just like, there's this qualitative conversation that is not a yes or a no. So you cover a murder, right? If someone just kills someone in plain blood, it's over. You know who did it. There's no like, well, the Karen Reed, this could have happened. There's no nuance. So this has nuance because it isn't.
You picked the wrong case for nuance. Karen Reed is nuance.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I know nothing about it, but
I can tell.
But in most cases, no. But my point is that in most cases, it's a he said, she said. And if Correct. There was a smoking gun evidence, it wouldn't be so like when people say, oh, this is bad for the movement of believing people, these cases only come out when they're so rare. And like in this case, you've got Blake Lively comes with about $1 billion with, the Mint Mobile money and Blake, by the way, grifting by having a liquor brand when she doesn't drink. That's another thing. I don't like grift. I don't like people,
that actually bothers me.
People that settle things
making the people that she interviews drink it and then says, well, I don't drink, and then promoting it during DB. I know I can get into all the things.
Yeah,
that
so
really
you got that, and then Justin Baldoni's side has $1 billion, CEO, and they're trying to, like, Blake Lively's trying to make it a work rights issue, but really she's the powerful one in the situation. She was the one who made 10 times as much money as everyone else on this. She made $3 million, they made 300,000. And the point is that the reason why this is culturally relevant. And the first reason I covered it was over the astroturfing, or the perceived astroturfing, because I talk about that all the time. And for those that want like a clear definition of astroturfing, it's taking a grassroots movement, but it's really fake, right? AstroTurf is fake grassroots. And it's the idea that with the internet that you can just have a couple people can get together with a couple bot accounts, and next thing you know, curate this whole idea. We see it happen with, big insurance companies and lobbyists. We just saw it happen with Big Soda. Big Soda was astroturfing, to get them included on food stamp applications or something by paying influencers or whatever. It's all over the place. And what we want, I think, generally speaking, is that we want life to be fair. We want to know that if someone's voting for something, it's because that's what they believe in, not because they were bought and paid for. We want to know that if people don't like Blake Lively, it's because they don't like Blake Lively, not because there was a crisis management firm that came out to wreck her. We just want things to be fair. So people see this, and initially the conspiracy is, why is everyone unfollowing Justin? Then it's, he's this monster, there's astroturfing. And then literally 48 hours later, when he countersues for $400 million and a $250 to New York Times, really over $500 million in lawsuits, then we go, oh, he's the David versus her Goliath. And then they want the justice for him. So it's very obvious in hindsight to see people just want justice. That's what it comes down to. And because these are relatively famous people, and Taylor Swift and all the other aspects are involved, we all know who we're talking about. Like if I go on stage, I had a show a few nights ago, and I'm on stage and I'm like, you guys hear about this Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively? 90% of the audience knew about it because it's such a cultural talking. But if I was like, did you hear about my uncle Tony and his crazy belief? Like, they're not going to know. The common denominator is the celebrity involved. And then the actual conversation is finding out the justice through all of the dripping of evidence as it's come in.
Well said. If, like I said, we're going to start covering this. I'm going to a murder trial, Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow case. Go get caught up, and we can have you on to talk about that. But we're heading there to Phoenix, Arizona, and we're going to be covering that day in and day out. But on the weekends, we want to start covering this because I agree with you. It's important. And it's about publicists and critical thinking and justice and psychological motives. And as you say, this has never really happened. Unimaginable crimes. If people are just jumping in and they want to understand this sort of Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case, where do you recommend they start? Is it with the New York Times article? Is it with the lawsuits?
Oh my gosh.
Is it a deep dive you've done? Yeah, he laughs.
Gosh, I'm a wordy guy.
Vial? Should they head to the Nick Vial?
No, don't do that. I'll call you. I'll give you my phone number. I'll call every single person. No, if you just search whatever, I always like to find people where they are. If you're on TikTok or Instagram, just search Blake Lively. I'm sure the algorithm will introduce you to the best, briefest version of what went down. But I think we did a good job of explaining it. I will say this though. I don't want to pretend like we have some sort of moralistic barometer here. This is salacious stuff. This is not all like, what's the greater context for good? There is some of that, but there's a lot of like people that see something that's apolitical. There's people across the spectrum. I actually will relate it to Luigi Mangione in that I think Luigi Mangione was apolitical. I think audiences across the spectrum saw an injustice playing out, now obviously people might not pull the trigger themselves, but they saw the injustice play out. And then we saw like news reporters try to like not call it for what it was, and people got upset about that. You had right-wing people and left-wing people. Audiences were up in arms going, no, what are you talking about? The world's so messed up right now. So with this case, it's like, look, you got moms and dads and siblings coming together talking about things, and it doesn't have to involve what was the most toxic election cycle of all time. So I think there is a relief there for people.
Well said. I am glad you brought that up. Right. This isn't all moral. This is salacious. This has been it has been something for me. I've been going through a hard time myself. Our audience knows, and it has been like a distraction too. But one that I want to start talking about now, and hence you.
No, I mean, and it's like, look, these cases are great examples to run the experiment. I've been running this, I say experiment, but I've been running this my whole, for the last several years, which is give people grace, understand that everyone's trying the best with the information they have, and try to call it out that way. And there's this old idea, like if it bleeds, it leads. And sure, you got to put a salacious thumbnail and title together. But I really believe that audiences would rather have a nuanced, long form conversation about this versus a 20-second TikTok. Like, here's why Blake's the worst. There's an audience with a thirst for for some of that nuance where, sure, yeah, it looks right now like she's the bad person, but okay, what are we just going to wrap it up? No, we're going to keep talking about it and talking about, what annoys me is these things, you become so tight-lipped and, the PR gets involved and we don't hear anything from Blake. She'll probably never do a tell-all interview, but I would love it if she just came forward and said, I completely misinterpreted all of this. That is my fault. Here are the reasons why. I am friends with a billionaire pop star, and I feel so inadequate that my career is kind of like stuck in this place that just yes. give us some dang honesty.
Yes. No, I do that too. As someone that has been in PR and on the opposite end of PR, because I was a broadcaster receiving all of the PR, the press releases. And then I've been a communications director for a company. I'm very intrigued in PR and how people manage things. I haven't done everything right for my own company. So I've learned through trial and error, but I agree with you that I feel like the best situation for Ryan and Blake in this situation would be to say, you know what, let's drop the lawsuit. We're sorry. Let's move on. But I also think it's really telling if we're talking motives that they don't and that they won't, because I think it says a lot about them that they're in it to win it. They know their power. They have endless money. They're like, we are going to fight this. We need to be right. And I think that's not a good look either.
Yeah. What's interesting. I covered this today is that there's a publicist that worked for Justin Baldoni's side later got fired. And when they were scorned, shared a lot of private messages with Blake Lively. A lot of those messages, it's come out
we're talking about Stephanie Jones.
Stephanie Jones, right. And these messages were out of context. They were missing emojis. It wasn't through the proper subpoena process, which means they might just be inadmissible. And there's a lot of issues with them. Blake Lively can own up to all of her problems and say, I got cocky, I took it public. And she could actually target Stephanie Jones and say, this is the person who lit the fire. I set the kindling up. I put all the firewood together. And this person with this text message, I thought was a smoking gun when it really wasn't. So she can kind of skirt the blame while also apologizing and saying, looking back on it, reviewing all of the footage I saw, I'm now aware that I was the problem. I'm going to go away and be a mom for a couple of years. And when I come back, I'm going to quietly try to do my job. And I think that's enough for Justin. People disagree with this. They go, well, no, he needs to see this all the way to the court. Maybe, but these depositions aren't going to look pretty for him either. He's winning right now. So do you call it while you're winning is the question.
Yeah, it's a good question. How both sides continue to manage it is a fascinating aspect for me. How this is going to end. Is it really going to go to a trial with a jury? By the way, I think it is. I know that everyone early on predicted it wasn't. I think we're going to see a trial at this point. What do you think?
I've interviewed some lawyers I trust, and they were like 99%, no way this goes to trial. And I asked them to give me a day, and we all picked a day. And one guy said Christmas Eve and then once we saw the discovery was August 14th, I was like, oh, it's going to settle on August 13th. There's no way, but yeah, I'm with you. Every single day this goes on, that's one more day of legal bills they're already paying, which means if they settle, they'll probably have to, I'm sure Blake's side is going to have to, because when I talk about a settlement at this point, I mean, Blake has to admit she was wrong. I don't see Justin Baldoni settling for any reason. His career is on the line, and his financial backer, who's also a member of his Baha'i faith church community, Steve Sarowitz, a billionaire, said, I will spend as much money as necessary. He's invested in this Wayfair company that Justin Baldoni owns. So they've got all of these reasons. And by the way, it ends with us. Some people go, oh, it wasn't a good movie. Made a ton of money, made $250 million on like a $20 million budget. That's about as successful as you'll ever get. So they've got a lot at stake. I don't see them coming out of this with a settlement unless Blake admits she was wrong. And not one of those, you know, I mean, it would have to be a strongly negotiated, I was wrong, I see it now, Justin did nothing wrong. Other than that, I don't think he settles.
Okay. Another thing that I like that you brought up, and I just want to say this, and you have some empathy for Blake and you humanize her and make sure we don't dehumanize anyone. And I want to reiterate that too. Like I've laid out where I am right now. I believe that Justin Baldoni has been railroaded, that he is a victim in this, that there was a takeover, an attempted takeover of this film. I guess it worked, right? A takeover of his film. He was in the basement for the premiere. But going back to when I was first being fed this algorithm of Blake videos, I didn't care. I didn't care about Blake. I don't, that's usually not like my jam, is like, I might be into murder, but like, I'm not really into like the behind the scenes of Hollywood. So I didn't know why I was getting fed this algorithm like last year. So when I started to look into it and I saw the Blake Lively videos and what she was getting on the internet, two things happened. I learned I didn't really like her that much because I was thinking to myself, I don't like the actions she's taking here. Like, I don't like that she's disregarding domestic violence. I don't like, as you point out, that she's pitching an alcohol company when she doesn't drink. I agree with that. But I also felt sorry for her. I was like, how much can one human being take? Like, this is a pile-on. Like, you know what I mean? And so when it actually died down and it stopped, I thought, oh, she's going to be able to move on now. Like, that was a serious pile-on. Like, I'm not a big fan of Blake Lively, but that was like, dude, like, you know, then she, of course, then the New York Times article came out and she filed her lawsuit. And I thought, oh, geez, like, now it's all back. Now it's all back. And the pile-on's back. And this time she did bring it on a bit herself. But I agree, like, she was postpartum. There's a lot going on. And I just want to say, I'm not trying to virtue signal here either, because I am participating in this salacious day-to-day activity here, and I am consuming the content, right? But I also think it's so important to also realize that, like, these are real people, and this how much can one human being take? And she has children that are being affected, you know, on and on and on. Again, maybe she should make the choice to drop the lawsuit at this point. But I do also just want to say that I appreciate how you humanize everyone in this story.
Well, thanks. But, you know, it's really interesting because audiences do have a hard time seeing a beautiful, successful, you know, celebrity and thinking that they have the same amount of dopamine, the same amount of they've got the same DNA as the rest of us, right? So they're going to have days where they're stuck and they're not creatively filled and they're anxious and all of those things. And it doesn't mean she wouldn't be wrong in that scenario. I do find when I do get pushback from this opinion, people go, are you mean to look, I've had 3 kids. I never did that. And I always go like, look, it's just flying too close to the sun. Right. So it's so off-putting that she would monetize her hair care line and her liquor line when she doesn't drink and all these things. But then when you pull back, you go, well, she's got a team of people that pitch her things. Ryan Reynolds has Mint Mobile and liquor. He's doing these crazy things. She's trying to pull her own weight in this group of like very ambitious type A personalities. Even when I analyze Blake Lively's humor, she comes off like a mean girl. She doesn't have the weapons to pull off being attractive and funny. She comes off like a bitch. And
right. And you're a comedian, so you can really assess the humor. I know she does. It's not a good look. It's like backhanded. Yeah.
I've done comedy for a long time and I still come off unlikable sometimes. And I go, well, to this room full of strangers, I didn't really give them the most empathetic first 4 minutes. I came out there like an angry ex-boyfriend because I didn't open up with the content that goes, I'm, raised by a single mom. Oh, we like this guy now. You see it with a comic who might be a large guy on stage. He makes fun of his body size or someone's big nose. You do that to then humanize yourself to an audience. Otherwise, you're just the person on stage with the power. And, Blake Lively makes fun of Leighton Meester's, mom being in prison and just totally misses the very tight needle you have to thread to be funny. Ryan Reynolds, say what you want about him, is a great comedic actor because he plays sort of a dumb guy in a sort of hot guy's body. He plays all the time this snarky, like he did it on SNL the other day when they said, "Hey, how's it going?" He said, "Why? What have you heard?" Like he plays this, he's got a very specific little Canadian personality that he does that works with his type. So she doesn't hit it, but she might be funny in her brunch and when people know her, and that's because they would already know who she is. They would probably already know the anxious person who's worried, am I going to fit into my jeans post-birth, and whatever normal things people think. But she presents with this perfection so people don't they don't get it. And and it's like, all right, you don't fault someone for that, whatever, but that's one of the reasons why she hasn't been liked. And it goes back. It's not new. I've worked on Gossip Girl, and so did my wife before we even knew each other. And we both have similar experiences where she looks like she's not happy, and maybe she's pensive, memorizing her lines, or maybe there's just feeling like, and by the way, she should, maybe work this out in therapy, but some people have this feeling like it's just never enough. And she got Gossip Girl when she was a young actor, and I don't think she really had to work that hard for it. And I know a lot of actors that are up at 4 a.m. waiting in line to audition for that play on Broadway. They're wrapped around the corner, and boy, they'd give anything to be able to be in that role. And maybe Blake, took it for granted and just wants what's next. And I think people can relate to that. And I think if she actually acknowledged that, if that's what it is, I'm projecting here. I think audiences have a hard time reckoning with this, but I do think audiences forgive. I think they go, no, never. But I think if she really came out and really deflated the sails and really got honest and said, you know what, I'm going to Bali with my family. I'm going to go work on me. I'm going to go be a mom. And then in 3 years, she comes back with some really great art house movie that has nothing. She takes us out of Blake Lively and puts us into some character. I believe people are okay with that. I really do. And we love a comeback story, but you can't hit rock bottom till you stop digging, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. People are intrigued by a story where people are being canceled, but we are also intrigued by a story of redemption.
You know what's crazy? I really want Firefest 2.0 to be successful. I don't know if you know anything about this, but the first Firefest was so bad, the guy had to go to jail. And there's something in me that it's like, you know what? You only go to jail if you don't pull it off. Come on, Billy McFarland. I want it to be sick. It won't, but I want it to do well because, I like to see the comeback. I like to see, I didn't want Tom Brady to retire at 40. I want him to play into his mid 50s because I want to see the old man who still has it, right? I think.
Well, that's how I'm feeling about Billy Bush right now, honestly. I'm cheering him on. I'm like, okay, hot mics by Billy Bush. I'm here for it. You have anyone on you want, which he is. He's like having everyone from Candace Owen to TikTokers to
not me. He didn't respond to my DM. He only has the hot TikTokers on. Come on, Billy.
Billy Bush, have Dave Neal on. He's next. Yeah, but I am cheering him because it's a story of redemption. Like he was canceled. It's like,
I mean, say what you want about it. I'm honest with the Billy Bush scenario. Call me whatever you want. I would have done the same thing. I would have been quiet. I'm not going to, if I got Donald Trump in some van talking mad shit, I'm just, zipped up, doing my job. I mean, if you're anything, Billy Bush should have filed an HR complaint. He's on the clock. You know what I mean? He's being exposed to this lunacy. We're referring to Trump saying, grab women by the pussy. And it's like Billy Bush was the one that got in trouble because Trump couldn't get in trouble. They had nothing to fire him. There's no one to fire him with.
Trump was elected president. Billy Bush got fired. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm with you. That was like a wild overcorrection. And, I mean, what can you, who knows? I mean, the guy's, he'll be fine, right? He's like Anderson Cooper, right? Billy Bush is part of the Bush family, the oil turned presidency family. And then Anderson Cooper is like, oh, I'm the first to not inherit money from the Vanderbilt billionaire fortune. Cry me a river, Anderson. You're going to be okay.
Right. You're right. They'll both do just fine. All right, gems. Many people have been asking me for my secret formula or the perfect way to make dream. And although there's not any perfect way, I think I found the almost perfect way, if I'm going to be honest. It starts with hot water, as you can see there, and then you add a scoop of dream. Okay, a scoop and just a little bit more, especially when I need that extra help falling asleep. It does the job every time. I sleep so well and wake up feeling refreshed and ready to go in the mornings. And then I use the frother, the Dream gave me on my first order. Everyone gets this on their first order. I use it more than just on Dream. It is now a staple in the kitchen. I love this. And then what I'm going to do is top my drink with some steamed oat milk. This is the secret, in my opinion. Just a perfect amount of creaminess, but nothing too extreme right before bed. Use a QR code or the link in the description of this episode for more information on Dream. We love this drink. It has done so much for our family. Thank you, Dream. And I know I've kept you for a long time. Thanks for your time, Dave. I do want to talk to you about this other fascinating thing about this case, which is this sort of mainstream media versus independent creators. And full disclosure, I've been on both sides now. I was a broadcaster for 10 years. I am now an independent journalist and creator. We cover true crime here at Hidden True Crime. But but recently my husband and I were in the Columbia Journal Review, and we talked about how we said we support journalism and the mainstream media. We see ourselves as a supplement to it. People want the deep dives, and I can do something with our channel that I wasn't able to do when I was in broadcast news, when I was only allotted 2 minutes to talk about something. And now I can be given an entire hour to sit here and talk with Dave Neal about our little weird, quirky beliefs about this, Hollywood disaster going on. But there are hit pieces going on about creators and the money we're making and how we're politicizing this, or you guys are. This is my first time. I haven't been on yet, so it's all you guys, not me yet. It seems like some infighting, which I'm not really liking, and it seems like you're trying to steer the ship and like say, "Hey guys, let's all come together." But what's your take on this now? Like you've been an independent creator, and you've got the New York Times and Hollywood Reporter and Glamour, and you've got it was a very uncomfortable TikTok by the journalist for Glamour. Was it her Stephanie? Was that her name?
Stephanie McNeil. Yeah. So it's tough because whenever we're generalized onto a side, I always push back, right? This idea that all content creators are the same. So Stephanie McNeil wrote an article for Glamour, which essentially is a blog at this point, and people got very upset about it. And it's like, I get it. I reported on it too. But let's remember, those of us that are kind of on the top of the content creator game, we're making very good living, right? The business model, when you can go direct to consumer, is very good. I will also not be financially shamed for that. Business Insider is writing an article right now where they've sent me multiple emails trying to know how much money I make and this and that, which I told them, you can join my Patreon for $5 and find that out. I give it to the Patreon because I don't partake in the financial shame aspect of it. I told the guy, I'll tell you how much I make when you tell me how much you make, because that's not a big deal. It doesn't change my opinions. What I like about content creators, for the most part, with YouTube and podcasts, is the way the ad revenue works for me is I get most of my income from like third-party ads that operate through Google, which owns YouTube. So I'm not beholden to going, boy, Mint Mobile's paying my bills. And by the way, Mint Mobile was a sponsor of mine. They pay me whatever.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds' company.
Yeah, it didn't change my opinion at all, but that can exist. And with mainstream media, it's like, my belief is we should be working towards healthcare, Medicare for all, but some percentage, I don't know if it's 50 or 80%, is they get their ad revenue from big pharmaceuticals. I mean, there's literally like this episode of the CNN, was sponsored by Pfizer. I don't think that is a safe place to for independent thinking. It doesn't mean I think everything's a conspiracy. I think there's just a lot of subtle bias that exists with mainstream media where they might not cover a story for certain reasons. And with the internet, it's free capitalism. You cover whatever you want. Now I always say this, tomorrow, if someone put a gun to my head and say, get 1 million views, I could crank out a couple crazy videos that might get a lot of views, but they are not going to deliver because I need watch time, I need viewer duration, I need click-through rate. And if I don't deliver on any salacious title or thumbnail, people aren't going to watch. And if people don't watch, if it doesn't reach the 40% threshold or 20% of people that are exposed to a thumbnail actually click on it, if it doesn't reach that threshold, the video flops. So, or no one will watch the next day and people will go, oh, this under delivered. He's no longer trustworthy. So we don't have editors over our shoulder, but we have the audience that edits by making sure we're being honest. And again, that might sound lousy. It's like people get it wrong. There's content creators that are in bad faith or they're overly salacious and they're playing into people's fear base, whatever. And that'll exist and people can find that and they can come and they can go. There's shows that I watch that are so ridiculous, some of the culture war issues they have, that I have to turn them off because I'm not getting the real enriching story. I'm not getting the meat and potatoes. I'm getting the dessert, the sugar. And that can be addicting to people. So this idea that it's us versus them, it's like, look, Stephanie McNeil with Glamour, I'm probably making 5 times her salary. It's a dying medium. No one's buying print magazines anymore. So she's doing what she has to do. But I'm also like not going to pretend like I'm the sort of innocent little content creator. Like I'm the beast now. Your content creators we have the ability to be the beast. We have the ability. We don't have a boss telling us what to say or when to say it. And we can speak, I can flip a switch and go live in 2 seconds. If I have a story we're sharing, I don't have to get things approved and so I don't really think, I just lost I'm so sorry. Can I just switch a battery out real quick?
Yeah, that's perfect.
I didn't realize I was going to lose.
That's a great headshot. I like the headshot there. Look at that. That must be your acting headshot. Was that your Glamour Girls? No, Gossip Girls? I've never even seen Gossip Girls. Sorry.
Yeah, it's an old one. Hold on 1 second. This never happens. I'm so sorry. This is so annoying.
No worries. This is actually a great example of being an independent creator, right? And I always tell people, like, if some of the things happened during our shows that, on the news, I'd get fired.
Oh yeah. Well, shoot. Hold on 1 second. I turned it back on, but now I have to redo this. No, this is so
people
annoying.
Are forgiving, though. I want to say that people are forgiving. I do want to say that, like, there are certain things that I've said because, like, our shows are so long where I've made some serious mistakes and I've had to come on and be like, I am so sorry. Let me correct myself. People are forgiving, and it means a lot to me. Like, people underestimate, like, people are forgiving where there was a time where if I made some of those mistakes, and I always try to correct myself, but like if I made those mistakes as a broadcaster, I would have been fired. So people are forgiving.
Yeah, and it's like it's a fabricated sort of worldwide wrestling thing, content creators versus journalists. In the end, if someone wants to really write a hit piece about me, my audience is going to double down. They are going to support me in other ways. I'll make merchandise t-shirts out of it. We just live in a world where you can't pull that on people anymore, and it'll only hurt their credibility. So that's why I don't fear it. I just try to be authentic and honest. And then I've got all the receipts to back it up. So this Business Insider, if they really want to go down that path where I'm the bad guy because I got a revenue bump covering the biggest story of Hollywood ever, then that's on them to make. By the way, they're behind a paywall. So they will be making a salacious story, hoping we cover it so that, this happened a couple of years. I was featured in Time Magazine. Sounds like a big deal, but it's like Time Magazine featured us so that we would talk about them. And the same thing happens every year. LA Times will cover the top 50 Los Angeles comedians. They want the promotion. It's the Wheaties box, right? Where you buy the Wheaties box and put your face on it. By covering content creators, they're staying relevant by hitching their company to the moving times. So I don't lose any sleep over it, but I also don't think, there's people on CNN I trust, there's people on Fox I trust the individual. And if they let me down, I trust Crystal Ball from Breaking Points. I trust Glenn Greenwald. There's certain people where I go, this person's Ryan Grimm. They're really trying to get it right, and they haven't let me down yet. And I follow them. And I think that's kind of the world we're moving to.
I agree. And I actually think it is helping all of it's helped mine, even our critical thinking skills, when we try to have to really now figure out who we want to follow. We used to not. We used to be able to just trust an outlet. We would get our newspaper thrown in our driveway. We'd pick it up and you didn't even know who wrote it. You just trusted the outlet and you trusted what you were reading. And now we can't do that. We actually do have to decide who we trust, and even then still use critical thinking with them. And then we have to sometimes disagree with those creators that we trust. So yeah, this is a world that is changing, and it's a world where we have to really understand what we're consuming and decide who we trust and who we can respect, and also do our own research at the same time. I need, though, really quickly, you just gave us a little bit of tea with this sort of business insider thing. And I have been hearing little hints of it on your channel, this like, tell me what is going on. They called you. Give us the story. I want to hear it here. I want to hear it.
Sure. I get an email from Business Insider, and look, we're always looking for free press. We're talking, hoping, hey, maybe 3 people might watch the channel. We're always cross promoting. That's we cross pollinate, right? We try to grow. So when Business Insider reaches out, I was like, all right, we'll have a chat, and obviously they're going to butter me up. And then I'm not, this is my first rodeo. So I record the conversation, 40 minutes. I gave the guy 40 minutes, and it was a lot of time. And I was like, you know what? I in really good faith, I explained my whole business model and how things work. But Business Insider sounds professional, but they pretty much, their specialty is to cancel people. Their specialty is like a hit piece on Dave Portnoy from Barstool. They'll do the same thing that New York Times did. They'll give you like a 3-hour window to respond. So I knew going in this was going to be interesting. And a lot of the questions I got from this guy, God bless him, maybe he's having a hard time writing the article because he's still following up on it. It's been 3 weeks. And I'm like, they don't pay you enough to spend this much time to write an article. But I've spoken to other content creators that are also in the process or that gave their story. And he really wants to know how much money I make. It's really important to him. He was doing the math and crunching my numbers and this and that. When I was sued last year for harassment, I was covering a story. The lady is being investigated. Thanks in part to my audience, we uncovered a medical fraud. But I was being threatened with a $100 million lawsuit. And I received a pretty good audience from it because they really trusted me and thought I was getting a real bad short end of the stick because, while my wife's pregnant and we're about to have our baby, I'm being threatened with insane amounts of threats from this lady and her lawyer, all of which we've proved that she's the one who was wrong and she dropped her case against me. But, she called the FBI on me, all these crazy things. So because of that, I developed this big audience. And this guy at Business Insider, he's basically saying, why should people believe you when you cover this case? Kind of, in ways asking questions to make it look like it'll be an article about how this is over the head of content creators, like with the heaviness of it. And I simply said, because I was threatened with a $100 million lawsuit, I stared it down. I looked in the belly of the beast and I doubled down and stuck to my story and I won. And I was willing to tell the truth despite most of my colleagues backing away from the story for fear of litigation and things like that. And I think it really shut them up because I don't think people realize like we all, everyone's different, but like, when the Johnny Depp story happened, people can Google this on YouTube. I did this show. It's called like the Today Show or whatever. It's the Ireland version of the Today Show. It's like the morning show. A couple Irish folks, this retired rugby player, and they blasted me. They blasted me on this show. On behalf of all of the toxic content creators, the ones that were making fun of Amber Heard and all of the silly things going on. Right. And I became the poster child for their anger towards the internet. That's like me getting mad at you for some of the angry comments I get. It's like, I refuse to be lumped in this giant category of hundreds of thousands of people that are making content about this. So I recorded the Business Insider conversation. So if it does get to the point where I am mischaracterized or made to look a certain way, we'll just show the math. And people, I'm confident, will decide for themselves that this random guy, if he does, and I've said this publicly to almost like tempt him, like, are you really going to be coming after me right now? Because I have no shame.
Right, right. And and I'm always encouraging good journalists to come on and start their channels, because if independent creators and independent journalists and are here and they are here to stay, then we need good voices and we need more good voices. You're absolutely right. We could go do something tomorrow for 1 million views. It doesn't mean we're going to have staying power either.
Yeah,
Right. What we do, people continue to come when you're right. There's good content, when people trust you, bring when you bring healthy conversation, and that's not easy. And I see you hustling. Even my husband said, he's like, he's got a 10-month-old and he's doing this twice a day. I said, yeah. And he's like, he's hustling. I'm like, you are.
yeah, for years
You're
now,
working
and it's
very
been
hard to
we
create your own future and your own business and support your family.
Oh,
So
thank you so much. Well,
nothing to be ashamed
and yeah, and when I was attacked last year with this lawsuit, I had to really grapple with, am I gonna, we just bought our first home, got a baby on the way. Am I gonna let this go? And I doubled down and I stuck to my guns and stuck to my recipe of like, let's try to deliver this as best we can. We'll share our opinion, but we'll all, it's opinion, but it's also journalism. It's a little bit of both. And you can do that, by the way. Like you can dabble between here's what's going on, here's what I think about it. There's this legal correspondent for MSNBC, and he has since left to do his own YouTube channel. He's got almost 1 million followers, and it's like there he was trying to jam everything into a 3-minute segment, and now he can talk for 30 minutes. And I think what it's proven is, Glamour magazine, Business Insider, even New York Times, they cannot compete with the most organic way of conversation, which is humans talking to each other. There is no competing with long form content. It'll be here. Podcasting and long form YouTube, it sounds like it's, evolved so much, but this is sitting around the fire stuff. And to take it back to my podcast, I'm sitting next to you at the bus stop. Let me tell you about the wombat girl from, Australia. And then I'm going to tell you about the girl who botched the national anthem. I'm just going to here's what I found today. And people, actually surprising to me, have really, really enjoyed it, because it's like, it's kind of some serious, it's like talking to a friend. Sometimes it's serious, sometimes it's funny, and it's whatever comes to me.
Yeah, it's what Dave finds interesting, and if we find what you find interesting, we're here for it. So, and clearly it's worked. I thank you, Dave, for being here. I've enjoyed your podcast. I've enjoyed how hard you're working. I've enjoyed your honesty. I've enjoyed how you've humanized people in this, and it's just, you're doing a great job. And so thank you.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much.
And we do want to have you back. I hope that we can collaborate again once we get the psychologist on board with us here.
I'll have so many great questions for him. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to work with.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions? Sorry, I'm looking at my producer. You're good? You're good? Do you want to say anything else?
Let me ask my producer. Are we good? Yeah, no, we're good. No, I appreciate it. Rub it in. You got a producer. I'm all alone over here. I got producers in my head. I got ADHD as my producer. No,
I have both of our producers too. Yes.
I get, in today's world, just the bandwidth of content that comes across my thing. It's like, if I don't catch, an email, it's gone. And I'm so glad that we were able to, I'm so glad that yours like stuck out to me, because it's, I'd love to come back, and, I'm excited to sort of hear your takes as they come up. And if there's any crime stories you think I should talk about on the Rush Hour, let me know, because I know there's going to be a few coming up. There's a few different trials. They might not be crime, they might not be murder, but there's that one like Netflix documentary about the cult. There's some LA, dance cult and a few things. So I am covering legal stuff, just not from the perspective of anybody who has any sort of legal expertise. Just
we do cults. We do cults. No, this is what you're going to want to cover. I will be in Phoenix, Arizona. So speaking of cults, cult mom Lori Vallow, go watch Sins of Our Mother if you haven't. The Netflix.
What's that on?
Netflix, Sins of Our Mother. My husband's in that Netflix doc, Sins of Our Mother. So, full disclosure there. I'm also pitching something we're in. Go watch that to get caught up. Lori Vallow is called Doomsday Mommy, and she is about to represent herself. She's been diagnosed with delusional disorder, and she was also a beauty queen, and she's about to represent herself in a trial in Arizona. I'll be there every day.
Representing herself. Wow.
It's going to be interesting. So we've been covering this case for about 5 years. It's why we started our podcast and YouTube channel. Was just we strictly
this is a big deal. Case. Are you covering it from the court, or like how does that work?
I will be covering it. So I do lunch lives every day. I go out on my cell phone and I just talk for like 20 minutes about what's going on. Then I go home, or by home, I mean our Airbnb, and we do total recap of every day of trial. So
yeah, I went to Scottsdale, Arizona to cover this other trial where I was involved in, and I rented a van to cover it from the location. And it was like 115 degrees that day in the van. The air conditioning could not keep up, and it was a sweaty mess. But I always told people with this, I said, if this goes to trial, I will be in New York to cover it. I'm going to do the same thing. I'll get like an Airbnb, stay downtown. I'll probably go live during the day, and then every afternoon, like run down to the courthouse and try to see what's going on there. But yeah, I mean, this is 2025. Well, they love to follow this stuff.
Yeah. Well, keep in touch. Let's keep in touch. And yeah, once we're caught up, I think that it's going to be, I'll tell everyone here too, like it's going to be Friday, I think is where we're going to release. Friday or Saturday. We might record Saturday. We might. Yeah. See that the producer, she keeps a handle on things, luckily. So we're going to record it Friday, release it Saturday. It's going to be our hot take. So thank you though for helping us get started and jumpstart this, and convincing my husband that this is a worthy thing to discuss.
Of course. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. And we will see you later.